Welcome to the Men in Blue podcast. Now, here's Kevin and Adam. Men in Blue.
Welcome back to the Men in Blue podcast. My name is Kevin Tucker. I'm joined, as always, by fellow Orlando Magic fanatic, Mr. Adam Elamari. What is up?
How's it going, Kev? Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day. That's right. We are recording this on Labor Day afternoon. So that's Monday, September 7th, to give you a little idea of the context of what we're talking about. So, last episode was really cool. We got to go back and look at the what ifs of the Orlando Magic history, kind of some big moments. What if they happened differently? There were some maybe additions that some people thought we maybe missed. We appreciate your guys' feedback as always. Hit us up on the interwebs. Find us on Twitter at Men in Blue Pod, or on Facebook, which is /Men in Blue Pod, or we hang out the Orlando Magic subreddit. Find us there. Let us know what you think about our podcast. And we appreciate all of the shout outs and all of the suggestions from all of you guys. So today, we've got a pretty cool episode for you. We're going to look at our guys. It's 2 parts. This will be part 1. There's so much to talk about with this team. We've had to break it down to 2 parts, but this will be part 1. We're going to talk about some of our key players. We're going to profile each of them, and then we're also going to talk about some of our new additions, not only on the team as far as the roster is concerned, but our biggest new addition of the season, which is our head coach, former Orlando Magic point guard, Mr. Scott Skiles, now at the helm of our team. That'll be interesting to talk over. That'll be interesting to see what he does with the team. He's got an interesting past. Does his past define his future? We'll see. We'll talk about that all here on this episode. It's going to be an exciting season because we've got some exciting players. None more exciting than kind of we've got, the cool thing about our franchise is we have more than one cornerstone. We could say we have 6 cornerstones if you want to be extreme. We could say we have 3 corners, whatever it looks like. But one of them, perhaps the biggest cornerstone of them all right now, is number 5, Victor Oladipo.
Absolutely. I think those 6 guys, any one of them could be our best player in 5 years.
It's a strange problem. Maybe problem is not the right word. It's an interesting scenario to be in because there's nothing like that in the entire league, as far as I'm concerned. No one has this balanced, young, potential superstar roster that we do. 6 guys when you talk about Oladipo, Payton, Tobias Harris, Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and now Mario Hezonja. The future is bright, and that's one of the things we'll talk about today. But it starts with Victor Oladipo. I think everyone can agree with that. Mm-hmm. What a stud he's been so far for us. We talked, in our last episode, we did the what if episode. We talked about what if some things happened differently with the history of our franchise, and we talked about that 2013 draft. There are other guys we could have taken that year, but I think we're all okay with Victor Oladipo, and he's proven that so far. He's still young, 23. Adam and I are both 23. It's amazing to sit here and think about the fact that Victor Oladipo is our age and the things he's doing on the court. Adam, we know a little bit about Victor with him being around the franchise for a couple years now. This will be his 3rd season. Tell us a little bit about him. Maybe some people don't know exactly his background, his history before the Magic. Talk us through some of that.
Victor Oladipo. Real name Kehinde Babatunde Oladipo. Mother's from Nigeria, dad from Sierra Leone. He himself was born May 1992 in Silver Spring, Maryland, but raised in Upper Marlboro. He's 6'4", 215, great size for a shooting guard, I think. We all know, not really a high recruit coming out of high school.
Yeah. As
a senior, he averaged 12 and 10. At DeMatha High School in Washington. They won the city championship. He was named to Washington Post All-Met First Team, but ranked 144th overall out of high school.
Wow.
Yeah, so he did end up going to a big, D1 school at Indiana.
Yeah.
No attention for his first 2 years. His 3rd year is really when people started paying attention, and that's, of course, the year where everybody thought Cody Zeller was going to be the best player on the team, but he actually stole some shine from him.
Definitely did.
He 61% field goal percentage for a point guard, which is pretty insane. Ranked 3rd in the nation in true shooting percentage. Probably the best perimeter defender in college at the time, I would think.
Yep.
He really shined during that tournament. He hit that big 3, if you remember. And Clark Kellogg, who I'm not too big of a fan of, did say Victor Oladipo is like a baby's bottom, smooth and sometimes explosive.
Oh man, that's as good of a quote as you'll ever hear, especially from Clark Kellogg. No offense,
Yeah.
but that's funny. That's a great quote. I like his real name, Kehinde Babatunde Oladipo.
Yeah. Luckily, it came out okay. I don't even know if that's actually how you pronounce it, but
Yeah, I think it's
it's
right.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But needless to say, you can see why he goes by Victor.
Yeah, definitely.
And so he beat Michigan in the tournament. Coach John Bayline said, "I've seen a lot of players. I don't know whether I've seen one quicker or faster, more athletic than Oladipo. It's tough to stay in front of him."
Yeah, it's interesting, and he won. He has a ton of accolades for his time in Indiana. He's a rare breed in the NBA these days, to where he's borderline superstar right now. But the path he took to become a superstar has been so different than everyone else. I mean, other guys, they're noticed in 8th grade, basically. You know, they're noticed coming out of junior high into high school, maybe at the latest in high school, and then they're highly recruited to go to all the big schools, Kentucky, etc. And they're followed through college, and usually they maintain that stardom in college, and then they're a high draft pick in the league. Victor Oladipo is the opposite. He wasn't highly recruited out of high school. He wasn't a big name half of his time in Indiana. It was only his last 2 years at IU when he turned on the Jets and was starting to get noticed and became a superstar player at Indiana.
Yeah.
And became recognized and noticed among the association, and the rest is history as far as being drafted with the Magic. But a strange path for our young superstar.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of creates more of a humble type of player, I think.
Definitely.
Being not heavily recruited, not being sought after too hard, not getting too much of a big head. I think he knows that he got here because of his hard work, and that's how he's going to get better.
Most definitely.
So coming out of college, Sporting News Men's College Basketball Player of the Year. I think he was projected to be more of in that 4 to 7 range.
Yeah.
But I said, what the hell? Let's take him at number 2. That draft was, everybody knows that draft was really weak.
Right.
Number 1 pick, Anthony Bennett. That's a sunk cost.
Yep.
I think if we get the number 1 pick, we still pick Oladipo.
Yeah.
We're not taking Anthony Bennett.
Yeah.
Nerlens Noel was thrown out there.
Yeah.
Injury history. I'm not too big a fan of that.
Yeah.
Alex Len drafted up high.
Yeah, we talked in our last podcast, the two guys that we can only imagine having right now over Victor Oladipo. I don't think either of us would take him. Will be Rudy Gobert and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yep.
Both guys, amazing upside. But as our team's constructed right now, I still think we take Oladipo. Great choice. Again, a strange path to stardom. But again, it's humbled him. It's made him realize that he's got to work for everything, and that's what he's done. He's worked his tail off to be where he is today, and that's awesome place to be. Let's talk about his time with the Magic. He's got 2 seasons under his belt. One thing that is not debatable is that he's strong on the defensive end. He's aggressive. He's a great one-on-one defender, help defender, up there in steals. Talk about what you've seen in his first 2 years with the team.
The first year was kind of a year where it was confusing because we wanted him to kind of be our point guard.
Right.
A lot of people were throwing out the...
And by we, it was our coaching staff, maybe not our fan base, but...
I kind of bought into it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, not me.
I'm a big Russell Westbrook fan, and that's kind of who I saw, but he's not that type of player. He doesn't really have I don't think he has that great of a court vision. He probably will in the future. And he did turn the ball over a lot, made some bad passes. I think he's in the role that he should be in right now. His second year, I thought, was pretty good. He didn't get off to a good start. He had that facial fracture. And I don't really like it when players go into the season hurt. It usually doesn't start well. We've seen that time and time again.
Yep.
But he had that dunk contest, which was a lot of fun.
Heck yeah, put on a show.
Yeah, lost to Zach LaVine, but there was a couple dunks in there that were just like, man, this guy's something. Dunk contests are always great for gaining popularity. We've seen what that did for Dwight back in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
So third year is usually when you see that jump for players. So we'll see what comes out from him. Yeah. I think he's going to be probably in the top 5 perimeter defenders at his position. He's a guy that can guard 1 through 3, like I said in the previous podcast, and I don't I don't think there's, yeah, I don't think there's too high of a ceiling for him, but this year I think is where you're going to see it.
Yeah, well, I agree. You know, we were talking about him making a jump last year. Statistically, you know, as far as scoring, he made a jump. I think his first year he averaged 13 or 14. Last year he jumped up to 17. I think we continue to see that go up. As we talk about it, some of our other cornerstones, we'll kind of talk about how other players are also expected to step up. So the point distribution is going to have to be spread out some way.
That's a good point.
It'll be interesting to see how many players step up, because at some point, if we say all of our players are going to hit 20 points, then eventually we're averaging 130 a game and our math doesn't work out. But I still see him taking a jump this year. I can see him hitting 20 points a game. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that is borderline expected of him. Definitely 20 points.
And like you said, because we have so many different guys that can put up a lot of points, I don't get really too caught up in the numbers.
Yeah.
It's whatever. For me, it's Oladipo's other end of the court that really makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And pairing him with Elfrid has already shown some rewards on the defensive end. And we'll talk about Skiles here in a second. I think those two, with the defensive mentality of Scott Skiles, is going to be amazing to watch. I think he's going to, again, they're already a great backcourt duo on the defensive end. I think he's going to take them to another level this year and years to come. But we'll talk about Coach Skiles here in a little bit. Back to Oladipo.
And of course, we've seen it so many times now. The real big thing for these young guys is that Team USA experience, which he's getting right now with Tobias. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about that a couple episodes ago, that it's been proven in the past that when these young guys go train with Team USA, even if they're not playing, they don't have to play a second. Tobias didn't play a second in that exhibition. It's the experience they get, not only with the superstars of the league, where they get to see their work ethic, see things they do, learn from them. It's also the coaching staffs they work with are second to none. I mean, those coaching staffs are stacked with guys who know the game and love the game and try and pour into these young guys because, let's be real, they're the future of Team USA. These are the guys that are going to be winning gold medals in years to come, these younger guys.
I expect Oladipo to Oladipo and Harris to get a real shot at that final Olympic roster for next year.
Yeah, you never know. Well, and we talked about Oladipo making a jump statistically. One thing you'll hear throughout this podcast, and basically until the season tips off, is there's an expectation across the board from Magic fans, from the front office, and even from players that the entire team takes a step forward. For example, Oladipo, there was a recent interview with John Denton sometime this summer, I don't remember. He said, quote, "We've been together for a while, for a couple of years now, and we're tired of using the 'we're too young' excuse. It's just time to win." And I think he's right. I think this is the year that these guys, individually and collectively, can start to turn that corner. You know me, if you've listened to this podcast, I blame a lot of our shortcomings over the past 2 seasons with these young guys on our former head coach, Jacques Vaughn. Again, I like the guy as a guy, especially as an assistant coach. I don't think he did particularly well as our head coach, especially with what we had at his disposal. I'm not saying we should have been in the playoffs, but I think the way he utilized or underutilized some of our guys has kind of hurt them over those 2 seasons. But regardless, like I said, it's the year that these guys need to start stepping up individually and collectively, and they know that. You hear Victor talk about these things, him and other guys on the team. They know it's their time. It's their time to step up, and I think this is the season that we start to see that.
And I don't think we have any selfish type of guys. That's a good thing.
No.
Speaking of that interview, Oladipo said, if you look at the great teams, the best teams in our league, there's more than one leader. There's more than one guy doing great things for them. So we've just got to find a way to gel, find a way to make things happen, and make things work.
Yeah.
So you love that philosophy, and I see Oladipo as sort of the captain role of the team.
Yeah.
So if he can, broach that type of philosophy with all the other players, I think, there's definitely a good chance that we make that jump.
Yeah. So we've got another episode coming out here closer towards the season where we'll go player by player and kind of discuss our expectations or predictions of what exactly the season will look like for them. We're going to wait and see a few preseason games and stuff like that. But I think for now, we'll just safe to say Oladipo is going to take a jump this year. It's kind of the way of young stars like him. They'll improve every year. What that is exactly, it remains to be seen. We'll talk about that in a later episode specifically. Looking beyond this season, you and I talked right before we recorded this. His contract is going to be interesting. He's locked in for another 2 seasons. Is that right?
2 seasons. Obviously, when rookies come in the league, they sign a 3-year deal, with the 4th year being a team option. And with these lottery picks, almost always the team picks that option up because his option is $6.5 million, and with that new TV deal money coming in, $6.5 million for what kind of player I think Oladipo is going to be in 2016-17 might be a top 5 contract.
Yeah,
and he's going to be a max player. I think it's safe to say that.
Yep.
I think he could get max money after this year with the type of expectation I have for him. So you're going to probably see a jump from 6.5 to somewhere around 20, maybe 22, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
And he's restricted, so I fully expect our team to pick it to match any offer that comes our way.
Yeah, needless to say, Victor's going to get a payday, assuming he continues on this trajectory that he is, which all of us expect him to. He is going to get a payday, and we'll be first in line to pay it. I don't think there's any doubt. I think the franchise loves him.
Well, you got to hope we get an extension before he even has to worry about that.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's going to be any question about it. Forget what he does on the court. He's a stand-up guy. The franchise loves what he's done in the community, what he does with the fan base. He's a great guy to have around the team and have representing your franchise. Our franchise loves guys like that. Who do a good job of that. And then obviously on the court, it's proven thus far, and I think he'll only continue to improve. So that's Victor Oladipo. He's kind of our we talked about it. We have multiple cornerstones, but if you had to pin it on one guy, who could very well take us to that next level, I think it has to be Oladipo.
I think so too.
There's a couple other guys we'll talk about who are younger, more unproven, who have the potential to maybe surpass Victor Oladipo.
Yep.
But I think as things stand right now, he's the guy we're really going to have to rely on to take us to that next step. And I think he will. Maybe not this year. Maybe it's a couple years from now, but we'll talk about that another time as well.
Yeah. So moving on to our next guy, who I think is probably our best player right now.
Yeah.
He was really, really close to making the All-Star team last year, and that's Nikola Vucevic.
Probably should have made it.
Yeah. Age 24. Born in I'm not going to say this right, Morges, Switzerland.
Sure.
And then raised in Belgium, where his father played pro ball. He's 7 feet tall, 270 pounds, only 24 years old. That's the theme that you'll see with this. We got some great young pieces.
Yep.
Yeah. His mother also played professional basketball, and he moved over to California. Obviously, he went to University of Southern California. Wasn't a high recruit, kind of like Oladipo. Was just there. He had a pretty solid, what would have been sophomore year. He made a bit of a jump. Did you watch him at all over there at USF? USC, sorry.
Yeah, I can't say. I remember, excuse me, I remember him in the tournament one year. I believe they made the tournament with him. I'm pretty sure I remember him playing. Anyway. I can't say I watched much of him in college. That's for sure.
He did win Most Improved Player in the Pac-10, led the Pac-10 in rebounds, and had the second most blocks ever in a season for a Trojan sophomore. Needless to say, he was actually drafted just outside of the lottery by Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Now, that was the lockout year, so he didn't really play for Philadelphia. He went over to Montenegro, played for Budućnost Podgorica.
Nice.
Yeah, that was
very
fun.
good. That was a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then as far as how he made his journey to the Orlando Magic, it's the trade that we all like to refer to now because I think we most certainly won the trade. It was the Dwight Howard trade. I think of those teams that were involved, the Orlando Magic definitely made out the best, mainly because one of the biggest reasons I should say is because we got Vucevic. That was back in 2012, obviously, that deal for Dwight. Yeah, I think that trade worked out for us. Obviously, we get a big man, cornerstone of our franchise in Vucevic. What a great job he's done so far in his time with the team. Yeah. He's think about some of the best rebounders we've had in our team in history. We've got, obviously, Shaq and Dwight. Vooch broke the record for the most rebounds in a single game with 29. I don't know if you remember that against Miami.
I do.
That
He's just got
heartbreaking
this
loss.
Yeah, he's just got this knack for getting the ball. Obviously, he's huge.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yep.
He's not a real leaper.
No.
And we remember that dunk against Chicago last year, but yeah, he's not a big leaper. He knows how to use his body, and he's one of those guys that's just right in the right spot at the right time.
I think I saw this week his wingspan is like 9.5 feet, maybe even more than that. I mean, not wingspan.
That can't be right.
His standing reach. Sorry,
okay.
that's what, not wingspan. No, it's not 9. His standing reach, I think, is 9.5 feet or something. Maybe even more than that. I can't remember.
So
where
he can
I saw
touch
that,
the rim with his tippy toes.
Just about. Yep, exactly. So, like you said, he's not a leaper, but he's just a magnet. He knows where the ball's going to go all the time, and that's a great thing to have.
And when we say that we won the Dwight Howard trade, we're not saying Vucevic is a better player than Dwight. Obviously, Dwight went to L.A. and then he left L.A., so that's why we say that we won the trade.
Yeah.
But it's very possible that Vucevic is a better player than Dwight in 2-3 years.
Yep. I think it's very possible. I don't see any reason why.
Like I said, he's 24. Dwight turns 30 in December. We'll see where it goes from there. He's definitely a bigger body.
Yeah.
He's not the type of defensive player Dwight is. Clearly, that's an area where he really needs to improve, and I think he might with Scott Skiles. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that's any question. Well, like I said, when we get to Skiles, I've got a lot on Skiles. I think Skiles is going to be a great addition for these young guys. But Skiles, his defensive mind, it's been proven. He's taken teams from the cellar of the defensive statistics to near the top consistently, and I think he'll do that with his team. Maybe not this year. Maybe it'll take a year. Who knows? But I think Vooch will improve definitely.
He's got to. Last year, the Magic allowed 3.2 more points per 100 possessions when Vucevic was on the floor. And opponents scored 53.7% at the rim when he was protecting the paint.
Wow.
You don't want the team shooting higher than average.
No,
that's
definitely
not. That's
The good thing with Vucevic, he's locked up for a while. Let's see, when was that extension? Was last fall, 4 years, $53 million.
Beautiful contract.
Yeah, that's again, with that TV deal money coming, that puts him at, what is that, a little over 10 a year. What is that, 11, something like that on average.
And it's really important that we get these guys locked up at a good price.
Yep.
Obviously, we have 6 young pieces who we think that's going to be a part of our future.
Right.
And they're all guys that are going to be in the 8-figure range. We can't get too crazy with the contracts, and I think getting Vooch at that price is super important for, like we said, offering money to Oladipo in a couple of years, and then Alfred Payton the year after that, and then more after and after.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crucial, and that is one thing that's going to be interesting over these coming 3+ years, is seeing how our front office handles these deals. Ideally, in an ideal world, all these young players blossom and turn into studs. Obviously, maybe that doesn't happen to all 6, but in an ideal world, let's say all 6 do. What does the team do? Are we going to have to lose some of these guys, trade some, whatever? Again, it's stuff way, way down the road, but it is going to be in the back of the front office minds and even some fans' minds.
Yeah, luckily we got we have the bird rights exception that allows us to sign any player on our team,
right,
even if they go over the cap. So that's going to work in our favor. But yeah, this could add up to easily a $120 million type of payroll.
Yeah, which, if we're winning games and challenging for titles, I don't think the front office is going to bat an eye to that. I think they've proved it before.
Yeah, like you said, we proved it before when during the Dwight years we had the second highest payroll in the league behind the Lakers. I think it was probably around $108 million after the luxury tax.
Yeah, it was up there.
I have no fear. It's not like I'm sitting here shaking my boots. Oh no, which one do we have to pick? I think we can pick all of them.
Right. Yep. Moving on. Let's go to this guy named Tobias Harris. We were talking about paydays. He got a payday this summer. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Another young guy, just 23 years old, which is amazing. You're seeing this trend here. The future is bright. We get that. What do we know about Tobias?
Tobias, unlike Vucevic and Oladipo, was very heavily recruited out of high school. He actually played for his varsity team as an 8th grader. Did a couple transfers. You know how those high recruits do. They transfer every couple of years. Won Mr. Basketball for the state of New York, which is a huge deal. That's a hard award to win.
Huge honor.
And we were talking before, you win that, you can go to pretty much any school you want to.
Yep.
Obviously a McDonald's All-American. Ranked 4th in the nation by Scout, ESPN grade 97. Played for Tennessee as a freshman. Kind of played sort of point forward type of role for Bruce Pearl.
Yep.
Did you get a chance to see Tobias in college? I didn't watch him too much.
Yeah, I watched more of him than I did of Vucevic. He was I think he averaged about 15 points. Like you said, he was kind of a point forward. He ran their offense a good chunk of the time, and he's still beloved over there in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Kind of think a Gary Valentine, Michigan State, maybe type of role.
Nice.
I think, yeah.
Good analogy there. Gary Valentine.
Yeah. Then he gets drafted by Milwaukee, and we luck into probably one of the biggest trades in the last 5 years of our team history. How does this sound, Magic fans? J.J. Redick, Gustavo Ion, and Ish Smith for Tobias Harris, Beno Udrih, and Deron Lamb.
Yeah.
Obviously, J.J. Redick left the season after, so I chalked that up to be probably one of the worst moves that year. You trade away a guy like Tobias for half a year of J.J. Redick at a time when you already had Brandon Jennings and Monte Ellis on your roster.
Yeah.
What do you think?
We can sit back here and say that. The other side of this is that, and I hate to say, we'll talk about this later, but when we talk about Scott Skiles, he was the coach at the time of the Bucks, and he wasn't playing Tobias Harris. Tobias was averaging 15? It was 11 minutes a game, something like that. Anyway,
as a 20-year-old,
right. He's a young guy, 1 year of college, wasn't playing a lot, wasn't scoring a lot. They saw it as potentially just trading away just another young possibility, if you will, because he hadn't proven himself. And so, obviously, looking back, the trade is a win because JJ was only in Milwaukee for the last 2.5 months of that season, whatever. I guess it was a February trade, 2 months, whatever it was. The other side of that for the Magic, one of the primary reasons why we dealt JJ wasn't necessarily to get Tobias, although I think that was a big part. I think we liked what we saw in Tobias. Mm-hmm. I think we dealt JJ because I think JJ was going to leave anyway, not out of ill will or anything. I just think our team had reloaded at that point, or was in the process of reloading after the Dwight deal, and JJ, was trying to go somewhere to win, and I think he was going to leave. He was going to be a free agent that summer anyway. Obviously, he was. So I think he was going to leave anyway. So the Magic were trying to get some kind of value for him, and boy, did we ever get value for him.
Yeah, I probably wanted a backup point guard in Beno Udrih. He's still a solid player. He carried Memphis through some tough stretches last year when they lost Mike Conley. Yeah. Now, me and you, big JJ Redick fans.
Huge.
We love JJ.
And I'll say not early on. I hated the draft pick, and I'll be the first to admit that. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. He's exactly, exactly what he is. Mm-hmm. His best year was probably last year with the Clippers.
Yep.
He had plenty. He averaged 20 points per game, I think, for the beginning stretch of the season until he got hurt. That's just kind of his woes. Is he gets these little knick-knack injuries sometimes. Yep. But he's definitely a huge part of the Clippers.
Yep.
But I don't think I think you can easily say Tobias is a better player than J.J. Redick already.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And Tobias is another one of those guys. It's the same kind of broken record with the team. He's a young player with a high potential, and we'll be interested to see where he goes. With this new contract, which we can talk about, there's a new expectation for Tobias Harris. Last year and the partial season before when he was with the team, or 2 seasons ago, he was just another part of the team, another young guy, go Tobias, that was a great game. Now there's this expectation, Tobias, you need to go out there and you need to be one of the leaders of this team, not just from a leadership standpoint, but you need to be putting the ball in the basket on a consistent basis. Not that he necessarily didn't do a good job of that, but he's another guy who needs to take a step up this season.
Yeah, he is the guy that should be our best player right now, I think. He's got a perfect frame, I think, for a small forward.
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see how Skiles uses him. I kind of like him in that stretch 4 roles.
Yeah.
But his biggest weakness right now is defense. Yeah. And he could probably get beat by a lot of guys, get back down, and eventually I see him playing along with Gordon, who are both kind of tweeners in that role.
Yep.
And obviously, Gordon's probably going to be a better defender as the years go by. Tobias is actually bigger than Aaron Gordon is right now. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And fun fact, Tobias Harris is actually Channing Frye's cousin.
Yes, that's true statement. True statement. Perhaps that played into why Channing Frye joined the team last offseason.
That and $32 million isn't too bad.
That's the other part that probably brought Channing Frye. But yes, Tobias Harris. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You were talking about positions. Let's not forget what the NBA Finals looked like last year with Steve Kerr in that sort of positionless setup that he had. People are calling, I don't know if you want to call it positionless necessarily, but that kind of free-flowing, you look at Draymond Green. What was Draymond Green in the finals? I couldn't even answer that for you. Was he 3, 4,
Draymond
whatever?
Green he's one of my favorite guys in the league, and he's smaller than Tobias and Aaron Gordon.
Yep.
He's got this, he's got this great, low, powerful body that can kind of knock anybody around. But I'm a firm believer that if you're a really good athlete, which Aaron Gordon definitely is, but we'll talk about him later. Tobias absolutely is a great athlete. So if you're a great athlete, there's no reason why you can't be a great defender. Yeah. He's got the frame. So get up there and move some ass.
Yeah, again, and with Scott Skiles coming in, I think he'll do a great job of developing each of our young guys individually into better defenders, and then definitely as a team, as a unit. Skiles' defensive schemes are going to work wonders, I think, for this team, as far as specifically on the defensive end. Again, we talked about Tobias's contract. Let's break that down a little bit. It's interesting in that it's more front-loaded than on the back end. A lot of these contracts these days are heavier on the back end.
Yeah, usually with young guys, it's back-loaded, and the older guys, they get front-loaded.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, eventually he's getting great money. Yeah. He's get $16 million a year this year. His highest year is going to be the year after, when the cap takes that big jump at $17.2 million, then back down to 16, and then the final year he's down to 14.8. But he's locked through the 2019 season.
Yeah, which it's amazing to think that in 2018-19, so we're talking about I guess that's three full seasons from now. Tobias Harris will be making less than $15 million.
Amazing.
That's unbelievable business.
And like I said, it's super important that we get these guys early, because Oladipo is going to sign that 20+ per year contract.
Yep.
And I don't know if his agent did negotiate that great, but I think it's a great contract for us.
Yeah.
It was a tough offseason. We didn't really know what we were going to do. At first, it was kind of like we were going to match any offer, and then you kind of heard some stuff come out that maybe not, and then I'm just.
And there was talk of the Knicks, offering him like 20-something mil a year.
Yeah, and then we flirted with Paul Millsap.
Yep.
I think if we got Paul Millsap, we probably don't get Tobias.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. Although the front office said that if that happened, that was not going to change anything. I find that hard to believe, but yeah, I'm with you on that. I think if Paul Millsap comes here, I think Tobias is gone. But look, honestly, the way our summer has gone, looking at some of our young guys and our draft picks and blah, 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 I think I'm okay without Paul Millsap, and I think I'd rather have Tobias going forward. Would Paul Millsap have made us instant contenders for the playoffs this year? Absolutely. But would I take that over a guy like Tobias Harris for our future? Probably not. Moving on, one of my favorite players in the entire team, not just for his hair, but for his ability on the court. Let's not forget, he was a rookie last season, Mr. Elfrid Payton. 21 years of age. We're getting down to our youngest guys. So that means he was born in February of '94, which is outrageous.
Unbelievable. We said before, me and Kevin are both 23 years old.
Right.
And it's been a couple of years now when guys have been entering the league younger than us, but Payton's born in '94, but this past draft we had some guys born in '96, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's outrageous. I think the number is now up to 7, maybe even more, of guys who are on the Orlando Magic that are younger than Adam and I, but we'll move on from that. Tell us a little bit about Elfrid Payton.
Okay, Elfrid's one of those guys, like Depot and Vooch, not heavily recruited. Born, like you said, in '94. He's a 6'4" point guard at 190 pounds, 21 years old. and he went to John Ehret High School in Louisiana. He's a big Louisiana guy. He's actually got a New Orleans Saints tattoo. New Orleans Pelicans tattoo and a Saints tattoo.
Yep.
Played for Louisiana Lafayette University, where he really, really came on in his sophomore year. He was a guy that carried the offense and was probably the best defensive point guard, if not maybe top 3, top 5 in the all of college basketball.
Yeah.
He played in the 2013 FIBA Under-19 World Championship, and that's really where he got some attention. I remember hearing stories about him and Marcus Smart at the time. Was the number 1 point guard recruit coming out, and apparently Alfred just mopped the floor with him. Yeah, and that's huge. He was drafted, I think, 2 spots after Marcus Smart, and me and Kevin, we kind of both wanted Dante Exum going into that draft.
Yeah,
but I don't really think going back I would do anything differently. I like Elfrid Payton. The guy that might be a what if he could be better than Elfrid Payton is neither of those guys. I think it might be Zach LaVine. What do you think?
Oh yeah, Zach LaVine's a freak. I mean, obviously, we saw him in the dunk contest. We can see his athleticism there. That's stuff he can't teach, and his length as well. Man, he's a lanky guy.
And to add on to that Marcus Smart point, they were competing for the starting spot on that team, which Payton did win. He started in all 9 games.
Wow, that's crazy. Then we talked a little bit about college. He played for Louisiana Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns. Averaged this is something that'll surprise Magic fans. He averaged 19 points a game in what was that, his junior season, I guess it was.
Yeah, which is really really impressive for a point guard.
Extremely. Yeah, so 19, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals. Obviously, the steals doesn't surprise anyone. He's a ball hawk, but Ragin' Cajuns ended up going to the NCAA tournament. That's surprising to me to see those scoring numbers, especially when we see him in the context of our team. Obviously, there are better scorers on our team, so he wasn't called on to be a scorer of the basketball like he was in college.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be. Right. He just needs to be able to have that threat.
Yes,
of being an offensive player.
Yes, and that's one thing we've heard from this summer is that he has to improve his shooting over this offseason, and I think he's worked hard on that because
that's definitely his weakest.
Yeah, just because there has to be that threat. Last season it was quickly realized that he wasn't necessarily a threat. Mid-range and beyond.
No, everybody's going under the screen.
Absolutely, and that's something we've got to work on, especially this offseason, how we tried to improve our perimeter shooting, which was a disaster last season. Guys need to be able to stick with him, stick with Payton, so that other guys can be open on the perimeter. But at least it's interesting to see that he did average 19 points a game in his junior year of college, so that threat is there. Not necessarily for shooting, obviously, but we've seen he can finish at the basket. Okay, he does a good job. He can throw it down every once in a while as well. He had some nice jams last season. But another
all
guy.
In all, a great rookie year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you think about it was his first NBA season. You couldn't really ask for more from a first-year guy, especially you can say coming out of a smaller university, a smaller school. That's a big jump to make and that's no offense to Louisiana Lafayette, but going from Louisiana Lafayette to the NBA is a huge jump.
Yeah, first team all-rookie team, which, it's debatable how hard that award is to get. I think it's kind of ridiculous that there's a second team all-NBA rookie. Yes. And he had back-to-back triple-doubles, first rookie to do that since Antoine Walker in 1997.
Antoine Walker.
Yeah. He's going to be the guy that runs our offense.
Yep.
I kind of like a comparison between Rajon Rondo and Gary Payton. Both guys, not fantastic shooters.
No.
But were able to affect the game in every other way possible. And I really, really think Elfrid could do that. He's a guy that we've seen his passing. Like I said, triple doubles for a rookie. That's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
And as long as he's got the court vision, you can see it. He knows how to use his body. He's got that skinny frame. He's tall, long arms, and he can kind of squeeze in between spaces that a lot of players can't.
Yeah.
And he's got to get that shot because the pick and roll only works if you can shoot.
Yeah.
We got Channing Frye, but Channing Frye is a guy that when he sets the pick and he goes out to pop, the player has to go under the screen so that you don't want the guy to step over to Channing Frye. You need Channing Frye's guy to switch over to Elfrid, but he's not going to do that if he can't shoot. So that's super important. The future of the NBA is, I mean, it's not the future, it's the present.
Yeah.
You got to have 4 guys on the court that can shoot.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about his numbers last season, just under 9 points, 6.5 assists, 4 boards, just under 2 steals. I think all of those numbers will go up. I think you could be talking about double-digit scoring, but the biggest thing would be assists.
Yeah.
I think with the other guys stepping up around him and a new coach and et cetera, I think those assist numbers could get pretty high. Because he's not necessarily a scoring threat, but if he's really dedicated to, which he is, dedicating to facilitating and using his great vision, I see those assist numbers going up. Again, we talked about his shooting percentages. He shot 26% from 3 last season.
No bueno.
Not good. Look, we're not expecting him to shoot 45% this season from 3. It's just got to get better. The threat has to be there. That if you're going to leave him completely wide open from beyond the arc, there has to be the threat that it's going to go in at least.
Yeah, I mean, look at a guy like I mentioned Russell Westbrook earlier.
Yeah.
He's not going to be Russell Westbrook, but Russell Westbrook's a guy that he's got that mid-range stroke locked down, and it's such a threat that it opens up everybody else's offensive game. We talked about how many guys could average 20 points a game on this team,
Right.
but it's not gonna work well if Peyton can't shoot. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but that's kind of where the offense has to start.
Yeah.
With people switching over to Peyton to contest his shot. But when you can sit back and relax, it really gets the offense cramped up. We're hoping Oladipo makes that jump with his 3-point shooting.
Yep.
That's really important. I think he will. Tobias, I think he was about 35% 3-point shooter, which is actually pretty good. I think that's league average. And Aaron Gordon's another guy. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Needs to improve his shot. Vucevic actually has a pretty good jump
Great
shot
shot.
for a center.
Yep.
And it starts with Peyton. I think we'll get into it more when we do a predictions podcast, but this is a guy who I think can be one of the assist leaders in the league.
Yep.
First team all defense.
Definitely.
And probably the best rebounding point guard in the league. I think that's definitely possible.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any question about that. And we talk about Peyton as well as Gordon being our rookies. The expectation to improve obviously is there from a rookie season. Not to say they had terrible rookie seasons, although Aaron Gordon, unfortunately didn't really get to show his stuff as much. But Elfrid Payton had a great rookie season. But I don't think the pressure or expectation that is on Oladipo and Harris and Vucevic I don't think that expectation is quite as strong on Elfrid Payton. Again, just because he's going to be a sophomore in this league. But I think just like any other rookie, there should be an expectation to improve maybe specific areas of the game, and one of those is shooting. I think, and I know we've seen reports all over the place that he's worked hard this summer on his shooting, and I hope it comes to light this season.
Yeah, all that matters with Peyton, I think, is if he just gets smarter.
Yeah,
he's already a guy that he's a starting point guard. He's a starting point guard in the NBA as a rookie, and he could have started for a few teams, I think.
Yeah.
So if he just makes a minimal jump next year, but then also just learns the craft of being a point guard and also learns the nuances on the defensive end, how to switch, how to go in between pick and rolls, when to jump out, when to duck under. That's really important. I think he's that type of player. He looks like a guy that really works hard and him and Oladipo work so well together because they have that thirst of getting better, and it's a thing that lifts the team up. The whole team wants to get better. They work so hard on the defensive end. I think they're going to be the best defensive backcourt as soon as this year.
Yeah.
And that's him and Oladipo with that type of philosophy, getting better at the little things. You don't need to increase your scoring average.
Right.
You just need to learn the nuances.
Yeah, and I can't underestimate the value of having he wasn't elite necessarily, but a good point guard in Scott Skiles now at the helm of
Yeah,
of
you
the
can
show.
learn a thing or two.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, obviously he has the NBA record for most assists in a game. He knows a thing or two about getting other players involved.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, he brings a lot to the defensive side. Not that Elfrid necessarily needs a ton of improvement there, but anything that Skiles can add to Elfrid Payton's game will be beneficial, and I think he will do that. All right, we talk contracts with everybody else. Obviously, Elfrid Payton's on a rookie contract.
Very nice rookie contract.
Absolutely.
Obviously, in the NBA draft, it's scaled to the highest picks, get more than lower picks.
Sure.
But Elfrid Payton at $2.5 million for 3 more years.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be 3.3 in that last year, but good
Yeah,
God, that's
we'll
a
take
great
that.
contract.
We'll take
And he's another guy, definitely could be a max player.
Yep.
Him and Oladipo, I think it's really important to keep those two together.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's interesting because maybe we're talking a year ago right now. We're looking at we were looking at our backcourt and saying, "Oh man, great defense, lots of energy, but where is the offense going to come from?" And over the past year, obviously Oladipo took a step in the right direction in his offense, and Payton wasn't a disaster. Like I said, he almost averaged 10 points a game. Once his shooting improves just a hair, which I think it will, those offensive questions start to disappear. Not necessarily because our backcourt is going to be so offensive heavy, although Oladipo will definitely carry a load, but because offense can come from other places. It can come from Tobias Harris. It can come from Nikola Vucevic. So the questions going into last season about the future of our team as far as the offense is concerned, I think are starting to dwindle away. Our point guard doesn't have to score the ball.
Yeah.
He can facilitate. As long as the guys around him are picking up the scoring, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, and I get it. I get the knock on having Payton as our point guard when Oladipo is not that great of a shooter.
Right.
Zach Lowe, who's my favorite NBA writer, actually wrote a great piece for Grantland called Magic Misdirection, How Orlando Can Conjure a Future from Its Non-Shooting Backcourt. As long as Oladipo can become a guy that you can't leave open, you could still be a contender in this league without your point guard being a great three-point shooter.
Definitely. And that's been proven. We talked about Rondo. Obviously, when we say Rondo, we're talking about the old Rondo, not the current Rondo. He's a mess.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Boston Rondo. Obviously, we can talk about who was on that team. He had the big three, if you want to call it that, with KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. He was a facilitator for those guys.
Yeah, even when those guys left,
Yeah.
he was still leading the league in
absolutely.
assists until he tore that ACL.
Absolutely. He had couple of games of like 23 assists, I think. I mean, he was out of his mind.
Yeah, and those are kind of padded. You could definitely see
Yes.
he'd get right up to the rim where a normal player would shoot a layup and he would pass it out.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. But another guy not recruited highly. He wasn't a guy that, like I said, Elfrid Payton wasn't a high potential guy coming out of high school, and neither was Rondo. Rondo did play for Kentucky, but I think he might have been a late first, maybe second round pick for Boston. A guy that people scratch their heads about being the starting point guard. And yeah, he got to play with KG, Paul, and Ray.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot in your development. Also being coached by Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
But we've seen it. We've seen non-shooting point guards thrive in this league.
Yep, absolutely. And to think that Elfrid Payton can't do that, I think is not fair to him. I think his future is just as bright as everyone else. Well, I didn't expect to talk quite that long enough for Payton, but man, the more you think about it, he's a crucial point to our future. And so I'm glad we got to sit and talk about him. Let's move on to our last two members of the core six, if you want to call them that, and they're the two wild cards. These are the guys that we have no idea how they're going to pan out. No idea, because they're so young, because they're so inexperienced, but their upside is outrageous.
Yep.
We start with Aaron Gordon, who, if you ask me, Aaron Gordon has the biggest upside out of anyone in the entire team. He has a long way to go. But as far as a physical specimen, as far as his athleticism, adding that to a solid basketball game, he has the highest ceiling on the team, in my opinion.
He's a guy that could be, I think his ceiling is probably something like Derek Favors. I mean, his floor, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then his ceiling is, some people throw Blake Griffin out there. I think he won't be as good offensively, but definitely a guy that could be the best. I mean, Anthony Davis is going to be the best defensive front court player.
Yeah.
But I think Aaron Gordon's a guy that can guard 2 through 5.
Absolutely.
He's got the foot speed. He's a crazy athlete.
Yep.
This is a guy that at 6'10" can jump as high as point guards.
Right.
And that's super important on the defensive end when Vooch is back there, who moves like a turtle. So to talk a little bit about Aaron Gordon, it's his second year, but he's actually the youngest player on our team. He's still only 19, born in September of 95.
Unbelievable. This is something we have to think about, Magic fans. People have talked about his first season. It wasn't the greatest. Obviously, he had some injuries and et cetera. Even his time on the court wasn't the greatest. But he is 19. He was born in September of 95. Like I said, his ceiling is ridiculous. Let's not forget. He's got a long way to go. He's still a youngster. Let's not get all over him right now. Let's just wait and see how he pans out. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, he's cut from the same type of cloth as Tobias was. He's probably the highest rated player on our team coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He's a California guy. He won Mr. Basketball in California 2 years in a row, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And went to Arizona, obviously, where they had a lot of good pieces. I really liked that team. They had Nick Johnson, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, a real defensive philosophy. Didn't really put up points, kind of averaged like 12 and 7 or something. But a guy that everybody said, he was picked fourth.
Right.
Very, very, very high ceiling. It could go any way with this guy.
Yep.
And we've seen him make some improvements with his shooting. That was the big thing coming out. I think he shot maybe in the 40s as far as percentage at the free throw line in college, which is not good for a guy that. Yeah, he tries to be a small forward sometimes. I think most guys want to be a guy that shoots the ball.
Right.
I see him, like I said before, it just matters that him and Tobias together can figure it out. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. We go back to that positionless basketball. I don't care what label you put on Tobias Harris and Aaron Gordon as far as their position. They just need to work it out. And they need to have a coach who helps figure that out, whatever that role is. And I think it really comes down to that word role instead of position. What's your role on the offensive side of the ball? What's your role on defense? As far as positions, I wouldn't be surprised if beginning even this season, you start to see some of that positionless basketball for the Magic, not because it's the trend, but because it's where our roster stands right now with Aaron Gordon and with Tobias Harris. Ideally, I would have Aaron Gordon starting instead of Channing Frye. I think Channing Frye will start early on once Scott Skiles to get his offense going, and he's a veteran. It won't take long for him to.
And because of Frye's shooting.
And definitely because of Frye's shooting. Although that can transition well to another point. This summer, Aaron Gordon looked fantastic shooting the ball. I don't know if you watched any summer league.
Oh yeah.
My goodness, he looked like a different player. It looked like a different shot. He was draining threes, long twos. I mean, it's
came
something
right out
that
and hit 2 threes.
Yeah, it's something that we didn't see last season. And again, it's hard to judge summer league. It's a different level of competition. But if that jump shot is anything close to what we saw this summer, look out NBA.
Yeah, I don't expect too much from him the next year.
No.
I just hope he makes some sort of jump where you can say this guy is trending up.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't see his shot coming along. We'll see how, an actual NBA game is a whole different beast.
Yeah.
Than the summer league. You get all those lights, you get the fans, you get the pressure.
Yep.
Harder defense, obviously.
Yes, definitely.
But he's another guy like Oladipo and Payton that leaves it all on the court. High effort guy, a guy that's going to work really hard in practice. And as now we're at our third guy that we talk about, and this is how we drafted. You always heard about it with Rob Hennigan. We want these defense first, high effort guys, and we're starting to see why that's so important on a team that can have so many scoring options. As long as you're an A on the defensive end, you can figure out the offensive stuff later. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think the formula is there going forward to have a strong defensive team. I don't think anyone can argue that with Payton and Oladipo and Aaron Gordon, particularly those three. The defensive end will be fine, assuming those guys can continue on that trajectory. And again,
I don't see why we can't be the best defensive team in the league in 3-4 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, those three guys in and of themselves, Payton could be and likely will be the best defensive point guard in the league in a short amount of time. Oladipo is already probably a top 5 defender at the 2 guard spot and could be greater in the years to come. And Aaron Gordon has the potential to be one of the best defensive forwards, wherever he ends up playing, defensive forwards in the league. Again, not only because he can guard forwards, he can guard just about anybody. He's athletic enough and quick enough to guard any position, essentially.
You look at a guy like LeBron or a guy like Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
That's the type of player I don't see why Aaron Gordon can't. I mean, you can't guard LeBron and KD.
Right.
But as long as you don't let them get crazy and do whatever they want, that's really important. And if we didn't have Aaron Gordon, we don't really have a guy that can do that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. That's a great point. I think in a small handful of years, 2-3 seasons, Aaron Gordon's going to be the guy who's on LeBron or KD or whoever that guy is on the other side. You know, seconds winding down. You know, we're up 1. 5 seconds left. Kevin Durant has the ball. I think in 2 to 3 years, Aaron Gordon's going to be on Kevin Durant and hopefully getting a stop. But I see that for sure. This concludes part 1 of our Orlando Magic profiles. Stay tuned. A second part will come out soon. From there, we'll look at some of our new players as well as our new coach, Scott Skiles. So stay tuned to the Men in Blue podcast. Give us a subscription here. Subscribe to us. And second part will be coming out soon.
Men in Blue.